are many people, different tribes, different tongues. We're united. Nigeria, now the promise. Well, I hope that those of us who believe in Nigeria are more than those who do not believe in Nigeria. Of course, it is very, very important that we continue to talk about unity. Of course, we continue to talk about peace. We continue to talk about tolerance, so that there can be progress, so that there can be development and greatness in our nation, Nigeria. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at IPOB. There are different angles to the whole mix and discussions about IPOB. We looked at one yesterday during critics when the governor of Borno State, Kashim Shettima, said that the threat that IPOB poses to Nigeria's unity is grave and more than that of Boko Haram. That's an angle. A lot of people actually disagreed with Shettima. Some agreed because we are talking about the peaceful coexistence of different ethnic nationalities of the country. But beyond that, that won't really be a main focus. That's just a side to the whole story. One other issue is the fact that the issue of IPOB has gone international because of different comments coming from different quarters, different branches of the IPOB in the different countries of the world. Don't forget that even some IPOB fans or IPOB members staged a protest in New York during the United Nations General Assembly, and of course trying to get the attention of the international community to what exactly is happening to IPOB members in the southeast. From the proscription of IPOB activities or IPOB as a group itself, the southeast, by the southeast governors, and of course the recent claim by the southeast governors that they are going to roll out the strategies and the modalities for the rehabilitation in quotes of the IPOB members in the southeast. And of course, nobody knows the whereabouts of the leader of the IPOB himself, that's Nnamdi Kanu. How do we actually solve all this crisis of confidence between not only IPOB and the Southeast governors, but also between IPOB members and the Southeast leaders, or Haneze Indigo, who is now serving as mediator, trying to broker peace between Indigo, who are living in the north, who are transacting businesses in the north, who are living there, who have married even northerners and given birth there, or who have spent many years in that country, and of course the relevant stakeholders who are actually thinking of coming up with a republic or independent nation called Biafra. How do we solve all this and make Nigeria one indivisible entity, indissoluble country? Do we all agree first that it is not negotiable, talking about the unity of Nigeria? I tell you, there are discordant tunes as regards that particular topic, because even those who have actually preached against the indissolubility of Nigeria are now saying that, hey, come here, Aghemerio, come here, Tobi, let's sit down. Don't let us just give ourselves a blank check and say no, it's indissoluble. No. We can begin to negotiate, because this current nation and current structure is not working. Aghemerio, well, how do we solve this quagmire?
All right, it's become a task and a job for every Nigerian. Okay, and I don't believe that we wait for the outsiders, that is foreign bodies, to come and help us or bail us out in this. Though it's becoming my fear, because it's one thing I have come to realize about Africans generally. Okay, when the Western world or the developed world has got problems, they solve the problems themselves. But when it becomes the African problem, it becomes the world's problems. And even Nigeria is not exempted in these. We always run out calling on, those people out there to come bail us out. But this is a situation that we all can, quickly nip in the bud. and the earlier we do that, the better. It seems like something tiny, something small, but it's actually small enough to disrupt the whole system, to disrupt the whole country. Now, we keep talking about restructuring. And even at that, we're still not understanding what it means. Many Nigerians do not know what restructuring is, okay? And is that really the solution? And if you're talking about restructuring, we still have different ideas, different thoughts, different opinions on that. No, it's not restructuring. Yes, it's restructuring. And now comparing IPOB with Biafra, can we really compare the two? Okay, we have people, some who feel that no, it's not possible. You can't just compare the two. They're not the same. Just like we have Ferry kicking against it. Like, no, it's incomparable. You can't just compare the two. And we have the Nigerian presidency still saying that, given one of the reasons they gave was that, that indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, is, big enough or had clear tendencies of a terrorist group. Okay, and that's a very, very key.
Yeah, that's another angle to it all, Aghemerio, that the declaration or the tagging IPOB a terrorist organization. Even though the presidency, the Nigerian army have released why they think IPOB is a terrorist organization, is that enough? When we tag IPOB a terrorist organization, how are we going to handle them? Are we now going to start tackling them like we have tackled the Boko Haram sect? You see, these are issues because people will continue to argue back and forth that no matter the strategies, no matter how IPOB or the leader, Nnamdi Kanu, is going about propagating his message of either restructuring or agitation or secession, uh, it's still a legitimate claim. Independence from a nation, it can never be tagged as an act of terrorism. But of course, you know that the law, treason is a criminal offense.
Oh, definitely it is.
And of course, you pay with the ultimate price. You pay the ultimate price if you're caught and convicted by a competent court of law. Well, we'll be looking at all this morning. We have a senior citizen a concerned citizen of Nigeria. Of course, he's based in Ogun State. He's very, very vast when it comes to international relations and, of course, issues of politics and socio-economic affairs. He's joining us this morning as a public commentator and public affairs analyst. I'm talking of no one else but Mr. Lekan Oketokun. Thank you very much for joining us once again this morning.
Hi, Tobi. Thank you very much. Good morning, listeners.
All right. A lot has been said already. We have different dimensions, different angles to this issue of IPOB. In the first instance, it started as something that one would think, oh, it's just a rabble rouser trying to make noise and get popular. The popularity has come, the fame has come, the followership has continued to grow. Do we have a real threat to Nigeria's unity on our hands?
Well, thank you very much. The issue of IPOB is one issue that must be tackled in a very cautious and robust manner. Why do I say this? Like rightly observed, IPOB started as a joke, and today what we are witnessing cannot be seen in that perspective again. It has become a serious issue, and if not dealt with or given attention, as it were, immediately, Nigeria may relapse into the kind of situation where we found ourselves when Boko Haram started. IPOB today has grown, and the popularity of that organization is something that should worry any concerned government. If you look at what is happening, you'll discover that if you go to the southeast, IPOB is recruiting. People are joining, especially artisans, unemployed youths, and a lot of other groups like that are joining by the day. So much so that it has become a kind of security threat to the southeast region, as it were. Now, this security threat, as it were, is something that is giving even the governors of that zone sleepless nights. And when you have an organization like IPOB that is taking on the Nigerian state headlong, that is calling the sovereignty of the Nigerian state into question, then you must take that organization very seriously. We have seen instances where the leader of IPOB openly attacked the government, saying all sort of things that if something was not done, something will happen. And these are things that no responsible government should just take lightly. We have also had instances whereby we understand that they have a secret service, they have a national guard, they have their own flag, they are about printing their currency and all manner of things like that. Now, if you have, don't forget that Nigeria is a federal state, and the principle of federalism all over the world means that you do not call for secession. That's the principle. And nowhere in the world where federalism is practiced that you call for secession. You want to opt out of the country, because the tenets of federalism does not allow that. And Nigeria being a federal state is not an exception. In fact, in our constitution, it is stated clearly that no part of the country will be allowed to secede.
All right. Now, do you also believe in, and know that the unity of the country is not negotiable?
Well, you see, Nigeria is a very diverse country, a heterogeneous country with more than 250 ethnicities. And if you have that kind of situation, the problem of managing that diversity is very challenging anywhere you go. And when you say Nigeria's unity is not negotiable, we have come a long way. And I believe, and that's my opinion, that our diversity should be used as a strength. Any call for secession, any call for breaking away, I don't think that would be okay for Nigeria. I don't want to say the unity, we can negotiate a lot of things within the federal structure. We can begin to negotiate because you have pockets of discontentment all over. And this is not peculiar to the southeast. If you go to, even the southwest has its own level of discontentment within the federation. And I think some of these things can be negotiated. But to say that Nigeria's unity, I don't believe that Nigeria is one united country, as it were. And to say that we can begin to say that, to say that a part should go because it's not satisfied with what is going on, I think we are only calling for anarchy. Some of the things that have been brought to the table can be discussed and negotiated.
Now, at the pace at which IPOB is moving, or at the rate at which it's moving, can you see IPOB, or do you see IPOB having that force, to bring about the disunity of this country?
Well, the way they are going, if you are calling for a secession, definitely you are calling for a dislocation, as it were, of the entire Nigerian nation. And that, to me, is not the way to go. I've said it before, every region, every unit, every ethnic group has one form of discontentment or another.
But does it have the force to create, to cause that disunity?
They have it. They have the capacity, I want to believe, and that's why We are seeing a lot of things happening. Don't forget that the leader of that group, Nnamdi Kanu, some people have said that he's not even has a U.S. passport or something like that, and we don't know the kind of connection he has over there. But the truth of the matter is that I believe that IPOB has the capacity to create problems for the unity of Nigeria.
Now, you said something earlier on about IPOB being a threat even in and to the southeast region. Now, let's take it down to the leaders and the governors of the southeast region. Because when it all started, it seems they were not really seen it as a threat. Do you think they miscalculated in any way, or they doubted the capacity of IPOB to be able to pull the strings?
But I don't believe that the governors of those states are that naive. Right from the start, I'm sure they were aware of the threat posed by IPOB. Just that they never bothered to do anything about it, or they were afraid of the backlash. You see, the reality is that many of them do not want to be seen at that point in time to be speaking against the IPOB, because IPOB, whether we like it or not, is seen by the average person in that part of the country as a kind of pet project that is owned by them. But the thing is that when they became conscious of the real threat, I believe, when IPOB now said that there will not be elections in Anambra if a referendum was not, and that brought their interest into play then. They now see that, or they now saw that IPOB, if not checked, will create serious problems for them, and that's where I believe that they got it. They got it too late to react to, as it were. Because if not for that threat that elections will not hold, because if elections do not hold in one state on account of the threat posed by IPOB, it means that when elections get to other states, it may affect them as well, and they are trying to protect their interests by now coming out strongly and seeing it as a threat, because their own interest is now involved.
Is it not too late? Is it not
Now,
too late?
do you agree with the federal government that Nnamdi Kanu violated severally his bail conditions before this recent clampdown on his enclave?
Well, there's no doubt that Nnamdi Kanu violated the bail conditions that the court pronounced. There's no doubt about it. We all have seen a case of a man who consistently do not believe in the laws of Nigeria, and do not believe that his guy is supposed to be under the rule of law of Nigeria. We have seen a man who went on a frolic of his own, disregarding his bail conditions. Part of the bail conditions has to do with him not associating with more than 10 people, should not speak to the press. If he has to travel out of that area, he has to inform the court and things like that, and so on and so forth. But we have seen him on several occasions with thousands of people addressing the press and doing all manner of things that even people who are not under bail conditions will do. And that is very bad. And I think at that point in time, the federal government should have done something about it. Or because when a man is on bail and he continuously does things to violate his bail condition, I think something should have been done earlier than now. And that is a lesson for government, that you don't just allow things to go and believe that it will die down once you don't nip it in the bud. And that's exactly what happened with the Boko Haram thing. It was not nipped in the bud when it started. And look at the kind of security scenario it has brought us into. So I think Kanu has violated his bail conditions, and federal government is right in trying to.
So still on Kanu's bail, now that his whereabouts are not known, there's a back and forth thing as regards his whereabouts. His brother is telling the army that, well, if you have killed Nnamdi Kanu, just release the body so that we can go bury him. The Nigerian army is saying, well, we did not kill him, we do not know where his whereabouts. Lai Mohammed has also said the same thing, that maybe he's gone into hiding or he has decided to flee the country. Now, if this is not solved quickly, Kanu's date in court is coming up shortly. He's supposed to attend his latest, the next hearing of his case. If that fails, there will be a warrant of arrest that will be issued by the court, by the judge sitting on his case. If he fails to be present in court, those who signed his bail bond are also in trouble. And one of them is a sitting and serving senator, Senator Aghemerio. How do we solve this? How would it be wrong for the judiciary to move against that senator?
Well, that is one of the intricacies of standing shorty for people in court. You must be able to guarantee that at the next hearing of any case, the person you are standing shorty for will be present in court. And if you are unable to do that, there are procedures the court will take in looking at that. As to his disappearance, well, it's neither here nor there. There are speculations here and there. He has been killed, he has not been killed, he went underground. I'm not in a position to say exactly what has happened to him. But if I am to hazard a guess, and this is just a guess, I think he has gone underground simply to escape arrest. And I'm sure that he will surface somehow very soon. But as to his appearance in court, which is getting near, I think one of the strategies as a rational human being who is doing some of those things that we have said he's doing, will be for him to precipitate a kind of scenario where it will look as if he is unable to appear in court on account of what has happened in the recent past. And I think that's very dangerous for the struggle. Those who stood shorty for him, the senator, I believe also will know the implication and will be looking for ways of getting him to appear in court, because if he doesn't appear, something must give. Something must give.
Talking about caliphate, I mean, talking about comparing IPOB with Boko Haram and describing it or seeing it as a terrorist group. Now, I just wanted to do a little bit of comparison here and just to possibly push some points further. Now, in the year 2004, that was in August, Boko Haram, that is Abubakar Shekau, the leader of Boko Haram at that time, made a declaration of a caliphate with its headquarters in Gwoza town at that time. And of course, that was seen as a threat to Nigeria, because there's no how you'll have a state or you have a country within a country. Okay, now we have IPOB talking about having their own national security, moving towards having their own currency and some other things. Now, if Boko Haram could be seen as a threat and of course described as a terrorist group, would it be right to start seeing IPOB too, with the situation on ground and the rate at which they're moving, talking about this and talking about that, and already giving us a structure of another country within Nigeria? How do you see that?
Well, the issue of whether IPOB is a terrorist group or has been termed a terrorist group or not is a matter I think is for the courts to decide. And in Nigeria, a court of competent jurisdiction has made the pronouncement that IPOB is a terrorist group. And until that order is vacated, it remains, IPOB remains a terrorist group. In terms of comparison, Boko Haram and IPOB, when you talk about terrorism, the academic or the scholarly definition of terrorism, there is no unanimity as to what constitutes, as to the definition of terrorism. The United States of America is the most powerful nation in the world, as it were. And even within the agencies of the United States of America, the institutions, the agencies like the FBI, the Department of State, and some other departments in the US, there is no unanimity as to the definition. But one thing that is clear in all the things that you call that the characteristic of the terrorism is that there are tactics and methods of terrorism, which is to bombings, kidnappings, and putting fear in people and using fear and all those kinds of things.
As a weapon.
Yeah, as a weapon. Now, when you look at the activities of IPOB, it is tending towards that, because we have had instances where we have read stories where it was alleged that IPOB has been molesting innocent civilians in that part of the country, extorting money, and we have even seen the leadership of IPOB calling directly for insurrection within the country. Now, these are things that border on terrorism, and there's no way you can divorce the activities of IPOB from what terrorism is all about, because some of the methods and tactics of IPOB border on terrorism, and to that extent, when you now have a court of law now pronouncing it, then put a stamp of legitimacy on that tag of terrorism.
Well, some may question that IPOB is not going about killing and maiming or bombing people, so it will be difficult for the government to establish in court a clear case of terrorism.
It has been established. It has been established, and that's why that court made that pronouncement. I don't want to go into the semantics of the argument that you raised, but the truth of the matter as it stands today is that you don't forget that when the army pronounced IPOB as a terrorist group, it was seen as a mistake, because under our laws, no institution can make that kind of pronouncement except the court of law. And when that mistake was realized, the federal government went to court, and the court declared, based on evidence available before the court declared that IPOB is a terrorist group. And part of the things that you do, again, to strengthen that court pronouncement is to make it to have a gazette. A gazette has come out, and then the further one is to make publication in 2 national dailies, which has been done, which I believe the government is doing or will do to make that law stand. To make that pronouncement of the court to really stand. Now, having done that, I think we should not be questioning whether it's a terrorist group. The United States of America, through one of its officials, said they don't consider IPOB a terrorist group. I believe that that's just an opinion. We have our laws in Nigeria, and I've told you that even within the United States, the definition of terrorism is not a uniform thing. So if the official is coming out to say that they don't believe that IPOB is a terrorist group, I think that is just an opinion. Because if you look at the definition of terrorism, Department of State, the FBI, and some other institutions of government in United States, they don't have an unanimity of opinion, of view as to what terrorism is all about. And even globally, there are more than 100 or more definitions of terrorism, and each claiming to be the exact definition. Now, what I'm trying to say is that the important thing to note about terrorism is that it's a political thing. It's a political weapon. It is designed to achieve a political objective. And that's exactly what the government has struck on when it went to court. That, look, you may say IPOB is not bombing, IPOB is not kidnapping, but it has a political undertone. And that is all what terrorism is designed to achieve.
All right, now let's also take the view of Aghemerio, which was represented by the National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Lekan Oketokun. And, it's actually such that it would be wrong for Mr. President to deal with to deal with IPOB just as it will deal with Boko Haram. Looking at the situation on ground, being that IPOB is an open organization or an open group, and Boko Haram isn't. All right, if you have to look at this statement by Aghemerio, what do you think about for Aghemerio to have come out and with its own opinion that IPOB shouldn't be treated like Boko Haram, which is a terrorist group?
Well, there's no way that government will deal with IPOB the way it dealt with or is dealing with Boko Haram.
Why?
The scenarios are different. The scenarios are slightly different. And I've told you before that terrorism, as it were, or terrorists, use different tactics. No two tactics are the same. It depends on what you see on the ground. I'm using terrorism because the court has made a pronouncement that IPOB is a terrorist group. It's not my own making now. Now, it may be true that IPOB is not bombing, it's not killing, it's not hijacking and things like that, planes. But that is what happens at the initial stage. When it matures, it now translates or escalates into all those things that I talk about. This is the initial stage of the struggle, as it were, in quote, for IPOB. And once something, they are trying to graduate. Don't forget that they didn't start with having a secret service. They did not start with having a national guard. They did not start with having currency. It was just at the level of rhetoric. But now, it is dawning on everybody that that level of rhetoric has graduated. And before you know what is happening, if it is not nipped in the bud, it will get to all these things that we talk about. So the Aghemerio angle, Aghemerio is also right to say that you cannot deal with you should not deal with IPOB the way you dealt with Boko Haram, because there was a full military onslaught on Boko Haram. In the case of IPOB, you cannot have a full military onslaught the kind that you had with Boko Haram, because for now, many of the things that Boko Haram did, like bombing churches, going to markets to do that, has not manifested in IPOB operation. But I believe that the method and tactics of dealing with different manners of manifestations of terrorism differs from one incident to another. And that's exactly the point that Aghemerio is talking about. Because if you do that, then you are going to probably have a lot of civilian casualties if you go about the way you dealt with Boko Haram and you are doing that. Because Boko Haram, there was a lot of movement of people away from areas of operation of Boko Haram. But as it were now, people are still within the enclave of the so-called enclave of IPOB. And if you deal with it the way you deal with IPOB, are you going to drop bombs on Umahia on
or
Aba or whatever, the way you dealt with the Boko Haram people in Sambisa Forest and some other areas where they operated. So the method and tactics of dealing with them will be different.
Or if you have to advise the government, the federal government now, how would you, what kind of advice would you give the government in dealing with IPOB?
Well, I believe our government has the information at its disposal, and I'm sure that they are exploring ways of. But I believe that dialogue should do. Whatever situation you find yourself, even after war, nations still come together to dialogue at a round table.
Are you in support of former President Obasanjo's advice that President Muhammadu Buhari should meet with Nnamdi Kanu?
Well, I don't want to say that I say that he should meet with Nnamdi Kanu, but I think he should meet with the leadership of IPOB, because Kanu is not the only person in IPOB.
Oh, he should meet with Ohaneze Ndigbo.
He should meet with all the stakeholders
in the southeast,
including the Ohaneze Ndigbo,
the
governors, and everybody.
Respected elders.
Yes, the traditional rulers of that area, and come up with a way forward. I think dialogue is what is needed.
Now, this is going to be very straightforward. Do you think a civil war can break out in Nigeria again after the war we survived?
Well, I do not honestly think that a civil war will come. There could be because a civil war is something that is done when a whole section of a country decides that this is enough. We have had it. When in the present situation, I don't see even the IPOB thing. If you look at the dynamics, you see that a cross section of that region still do not support the activities of IPOB. The traditional rulers, the governors, even the Ohaneze Ndigbo, even some mass sub. You know that before this IPOB, there is the movement for the actualization of sovereign state of Biafra, led by one Wazirike. Even Wazirike is not supporting it. And when you have a kind of scenario like that, you definitely cannot have unanimity of views to prosecute a civil war, to go into a civil war, to say we are fighting this region.
All right, we'll have to take a breather here for the national news at 10. After the national news, we will be back, definitely. Mr. Lekan Oketokun, our analyst this morning, and our guest will still be in the studio. In the meantime, you can start sending your questions, comments, and contributions via different platforms on social media at Rockset FM, the Twitter handle, Rockset FM 11.9, the Facebook fan page, and of course, the short code 32120. Stay with us, we'll be back. That pretty much sounds like the kind of song that Nnamdi Kanu will be singing this beautiful morning. All right, that's Jada, a beautiful piece of music, a beautiful piece of art by Asha. This morning we're looking at IPOB, the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, as led by Nnamdi Kanu, and their agitation for an independent sovereign state of Biafra. What this is actually costing the country, tensions, security situations in the southeast, which have actually led to the southeast governors meeting severally to actually tame what could actually snowball into a full-blown crisis that could hinder the peaceful atmosphere of that particular region. We've also talked about the fact that comparisons have been made about Boko Haram and IPOB. What exactly is causing these comparisons? And of course, what would you say about the labeling of IPOB as a terrorist organization, and of course the proscription of IPOB activities, and of course as a group by the Southeast governors. We have in the studio a concerned citizen, someone very vast with international relations and political development. He's a He's an analyst this morning on the show, and his name is Lekan Oketokun. You're welcome once again, Mr. Lekan Oketokun.
Thank you.
Now, before we go, before we accommodate people's calls and contributions, let me quickly find out from you that there's a school of thought that believe that the world over, there are people, there's a cartel that feeds on war and conflict in countries because it is in their own interest, business interest, and selfish interest if this destabilization occurs in those countries because they are either into arms trade or they sell nuclear weapons or they are trying to get the oil or mineral resource in that particular country or the likes. Now, in recent time, we've witnessed more than 4 seizures of weapons coming in through the country. The Nigerian Customs Service have seized more than 4 consignments. In total, more than 2,640 something have been seized. Pump action rifles, single barrel guns, and you begin to wonder, are we planning war? So when you look at all this school of thought believes that there is the hand of a fifth colonist in all that is happening. Where is Nnamdi Kanu getting his funds from? Where is he getting this support from? Some also believe that we are these militants in the Niger Delta getting these weapons from. So, do you support the school of thought's opinion that there are external forces that are pushing this secessionist agenda, importing or exporting weapons into the country to destabilize Nigeria just because of one particular agenda or not?
Well, thank you very much. There is no doubt that in scenarios or in cases like this, you find a situation where funding is not only sourced locally, but it is something that comes also from outside sources. And the IPOB is not an exception. As a matter of fact, the federal government, and this is what was on the pages of newspapers, said it has traced the source of funding of IPOB to France. And so, but be that as it may, there's no doubt that prosecuting the kind of movement financially that IPOB is doing now, it would involve funding, massive funding, because you cannot sustain. Look at the number of people that cluster around Nnamdi Kanu. He has to feed them, he has to provide logistics for them, and so on and so on. And this will need money. So there's no doubt that outside influence is involved here. And when you see arms being moved from one nation to another, then it also suggests that something big is in the offing. Because why is it now that customs are now detecting arms movement into Nigeria? What are those arms going to be used for? These are sophisticated arms, weapons. And now that this agitation is becoming stronger, you now see seizures of arms. And so we must begin to question what those arms or where those arms are coming from. And a lot of foreign countries may be involved, as it were, because you don't just go and jump into a country and start saying you want secession, you want secession, you want secession. There must have been a grand plan somewhere before you begin to do that. Who are the backers of this fellow, and so on and so forth. And let me say that it's a serious challenge that government must not view with must it with kid gloves. It's a serious challenge. It is.
All right. At this juncture, we'll throw the studio lines open, and of course, other channels for you to be part of our discussion this morning.
All right, we have you. Yes, we have you. Good morning.
Yes. I want to appreciate Lekan for his analysis. He has been very, very blunt and real in his analysis. And I give kudos to him. And I've always been disturbed by this IPOB program of the game. Because every section of the country has their own grievances, including we on the southwest. We also have our own grievances. Why are they going to the extreme? And I looked at this guy's age. I doubt if they ever told him the reality of Biafra. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in the division of the country. I don't want to lose my Igbo friends. Not even my Yoruba, and they are here in Abeokuta. I don't want to lose them. So I don't see what he's doing to reality on the ground. However, sir, as you have said, I've also been curious about the way he does himself in us, which you have also traced on this program. Sir, my question is this. What can we get to move this thing to the board before it is agreed to be at this level?
Sorry, come again.
What can we do with all this analysis on the ground to nip this thing to the board?
Okay.
At this level where it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, I greet you. Tobi, good morning.
Morning.
And I heard the analyst. Oketokun, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Gaudi from Abek. I greet you. In fact, you have done so good this morning. You have delivered everything you have said. I don't have questions to raise, but I need to have comments to make. You see, in summary of all, I said it somehow this morning, we need to begin to exercise benevolence to one another. If anybody has raised Kanu for this purpose for which he could not be able to achieve now, that person is left for God. Are you with me, sir? So
yes,
we must agree that there is an initiator. A constitution normally talks about whether you are agitating for one person. Why could Kanu haven't gone to court before now to have done that? And then probably he would have been seen to be honest in what he was doing. Unfortunately, he had missed it. Unfortunately, he had run away. Unfortunately, for the people that have stood up for him, probably in the term of that exercise in the court, which we stand for surety, they are the one that will be picked now, whether they like it or not. And I remember I could probably see that the senators have told those people that have stood for him to be cautious and then don't they should look forward to seeing that man being arrested. But having said this, I want to ask, I don't believe in dialoguing with Kanu. I said it somewhere. The reason is that Kanu is a traitor. We have seen it that way because the organization it probably leads has been given that label as a terrorist. Terrorism cannot go in the way of peace. We need somebody that will very wise to show a kind of modicum of sense and then see how we have a good way of living in the country. We need to love one another, whether no matter what race or tribe you are from.
All right,
so that is the way I see. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aghemerio, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, my friend, Dr. Oketokun. Look, let me confess. This is the first analysis, what I call A1 analysis I've had since this IPOB stupidity started. First analysis I've read, I've heard. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank
you. I think that it has come for us to deal decisively with miscreants in our society in the name of ethnic nationalities and what have you. And we should start with IPOB. I think IPOB should be crushed. If they cannot find Kanu, there's a should be taken to court and jailed, if possible, so that people of his like mind who believe that because they are Igbos, they can do anything, should be jailed. We are tired of people disrupting the progress of this country. Part of the problem we have is because of this ethnic nationalities thinking that they can hold anybody to ransom. Niger Delta, IPOB, Boko Haram. We should deal decisively with them. I don't see why they left Kanu to be so long when he has broken so many of his best conditionalities. Why? Because of what? Because they are politics. Someone will vote for them or not vote for them. This is the problem we have when we politicize everything. Kanu will not do this in America. Kanu can never do this in in UK, where he resides, where his wife resides and children. He can't try it, where politics or not. But he has done it. But for the Igbos, I've told them, look, go back home, go and ask their husbands to spend your money. Nobody has marginalized you. You are the, is it that you want to be, what do you call Buhari's kitchen, to be cooking soup for him? So if an Igbo man is not marginalized, or NMTC, what do you need to do in NMTC? Go and develop your state. Go and develop your region. All the money you claim you have, develop it and let people be coming to our area. But leave Ladipo. Go back to the east and go and set the paper market so that we're coming from Abeokuta to buy space parties. Come to the west and stay here with the peace and then start committing trouble, calling them iPod. I am from there. So nobody should say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Go back and develop people land. You have it. But what you don't have is that you don't have the cohesion. People are building the statue for
Dr. you need to wrap it up now.
Where is the statue for Zik? Those are the issues I'm supposed to be talking about, not going to disturb people. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Hello. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
We have you. Good morning. We have you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Aghemerio.
Right,
good morning, Tobi.
Good morning,
Dr. Oketokun. I really appreciate you. Though this is not the first time I will be hearing fine information on this issue of IPOB. I've had it from one or two people who have said this as it should be. Having said that, I think I want to appreciate the last caller too, and I want to throw the same line for the last caller. We are just talking. We use words in this country. Wrongly. Let me say wrongly. Clearly. We are not using words appropriately in this country. Marginalization. In Nigeria, we just wake up and say, I am being marginalized. I am being marginalized. So what is the meaning of marginalization? In the recent of it, can we say the Igbos are being marginalized? And I would say no. What is here? What cannot happen in Igbo land? Some of it in Hadia, some of any Igbo, Anambra, and other Igbo states. Happens in Lagos. In Lagos here, we have 3 out of representative members far from Igbo. If you are born in Igbo land, you cannot become anything. You cannot hold any political appointee in Igbo. You see here in Lagos State, we are having Sept sellers. Igbos are dominated that. See everywhere. There is no state in Nigeria that you will not find Igbo man. But go to Igbo land. You will not, if you cannot do whatever you can do quickly and go back to your state, you cannot thrive, your business cannot thrive in Igbo if you are from other states. And Igbos are complaining. They are saying marginalization. They are saying IPOB. And I know, I am very, very sure that Kanu is not speaking the mind of majority of Igbo people. Why? Because Igbo is their businesses. And some of these their businesses we are talking about are not in their land. They are scattered all other parts of the other parts of the country. So what are we now talking? Igbo, Kanu, as far as I'm concerned, it is my personal opinion, should be dealt with. Should be dealt with. He's just an ordinary person.
All right.
A single person is disturbing the whole nation.
You need to wrap things up now.
You cannot just hold his hand and be looking at his man and be disturbing. Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Mr. Lekan Oketokun, your reactions to the contributions so far.
Well, thank you very much. I want to commend all who have spoken on this issue and to say that they have all spoken very well. Let me start with Mr. King Bidoni, who talked about, who asked what can be done to nip this situation in the bud, as it were. Well, all over the world, when there are issues like this, I think the recognized method of dealing with it is to dialogue. And we keep talking about dialogue in the sense because it is the only, even when you have had wars, you still need to come to the round table to discuss, to dialogue. We have seen that every group in Nigeria has one issue or another against the system, and we cannot all begin to say, unless our opinions, unless our views are taken, we will go to war or we will secede. Secession to me is not the solution, and that's where Nnamdi Kanu and his fellow people got it wrong. I'll give you an example. South Sudan is an independent country today, and they were part of Sudan, the Sudan before. Now they fought a long time, a long period of civil war, and they gained independence. Now South Sudan today is more divided than they were when they were in with the main Sudan. The kind of situation that is in South Sudan today, you cannot begin to imagine. Millions of people have been displaced, children malnourished as a result of ego war and things like that. So if they had it like that, I don't think we should go that way. I believe that nothing is too serious, nothing is too much for us to sit at the round table and then discuss. And a lot of people have also called for an examination of the reports of the last constitutional conference. I think government should begin to look at some of the recommendations from that conference as well, because I believe that some of the recommendations of that conference in a way addressed some of the concerns being raised by the different ethnic groups and nationalities that we have in Nigeria today. And I believe that government should just be magnanimous enough to take a look at that document and look for a way to just do something about it. Now, the other issue that I want to talk about is the one that was mentioned by Mr. Emeka, who said that government has refused to dialogue. I don't believe that government has refused to dialogue in respect of the IPOB thing. I believe that it takes two to tango. The posture of IPOB and its leadership does not suggest that they want dialogue themselves. So for anybody to suggest, because I've never heard that Nnamdi Kanu is called for dialogue at any particular point in time. He will only make his statements to the effect that if something is not done, something will happen. Making threat and threatening fire and brimstone against the Nigerian state, and that is not the way to go. We should all have the mind of dialogue, and that is the first thing that anybody can have before you can begin to call others to come and dialogue with you. So I believe that government will be willing to listen if the situation is right, but I don't believe that calling for secession is the way out. I think that is about all that were raised. Others were just comments and okay, I think that is it.
All right, let's says good morning. Federal government should listen to Biafra agitators and dialogue now. This is not a cry of a baby, it's a cry of an adult. Nigeria's unity is negotiable. Dialogue now, for the day ahead is evil. That's Kingsley from Ewang. Yes, unity of Nigeria should be non-negotiable, but not when the president is a pure tribalist, sectionalist. All security agencies are modernized. They were listening to that one. Oburu P for Malaria says, sir, are you saying this our country is one Nigeria when non-Muslims cannot rent or live in the same compound with Hausa Muslims in the north? Let us stop deceiving ourselves. For goodness sake, where was Odumaki and Afenifere when Nnamdi Kanu violated his bail conditions? The court failed to rearrest him, and the military, under government instructions, moved him before IPOB set Nigeria on fire, and the court has pronounced it a terrorist group. The National Assembly wants Nigeria on fire, whilst holidaying, Abi. Otherwise, it does not say IPOB is not a terror group. Khaldi from Rwanda sent in that one. Sir, why are people like you silent at the killings of innocent citizens by Fulanis, but very bold to declare IPOBians as terrorists? I see hate. Adewale sent in that one. Sir, thank you so much for your explosive and educative submissions. And now, with all the challenges and agitations in the country, it shows the present political structures are inadequate to guarantee probity and peaceful coexistence. The National Assembly body language is not favorable to restructuring, and it has further complicated the problem. Sir, what do you think can be done to ameliorate the current agitations from various sections of the country? We are fed up. Kenny additional from Asheru sent in that. IK from E4, I am an Igbo man, and I forbid any devil that would bring disunity of the country. But for we to forbid the devil, the unity of the nation must be negotiable.
This one came from James Ajibade. I think no man should compare IPOB with Boko Haram. IPOB can be charged for treason, not terrorism. The federal government is not sincere. And still from James Ajibade, Nigerian government made a costly mistake in handling Mohammed Yusuf case, and they have started towing the same path of error, which will boomerang. Omobade Adeyemi tweeted, I agree with the guest that federal government should dialogue not only with the leaders of IPA but with governors, rulers, stakeholders in eastern part. And this still coming from Omobade Adeyemi. All your submission this morning is factual. You reason the way a common man reasons, because this is how Boko Haram started. Dialogue is the solution. And we got this one still from Omobade Adeyemi. Something I disagree with Afenifere because it has been compromised. We shouldn't forget that Afenifere didn't support Buhari during election. Abaton Olusheyi, Israel, also tweeted, do you think by silencing Nnamdi Kanu, government has silenced agitations in Nigeria? And to what extent has this government specifically attended to dissatisfactions, agitations from different quarters in Nigeria? Okay, that still came from Abaton Olusheyi, Israel. It is asking you to mention. Yemi Da Vinci tweeted, follow the money. If federal government has sincerely followed the money in Boko Haram's case, we would have nipped it in the bud, followed the money. If anyone has listened to Radio Biafra, one will not be appalled at Kanu's shenanigans. I mean, the impersonated Yoruba peeps. Yemi Da Vinci tweeted that still, and James Ajibade also tweeted, so you said in your startup comment that IPOB issues should be tackled in mature and robust manner. Sir, if you are the president, what will you do differently? And we got this one from Yemi Da Vinci again. Even the Catalonia that IPOB apologists were pointing as example are being crushed by Spanish authorities. Yemi Da Vinci tweeted again, Senator Abaribe and co should be jailed if Kanu refuses to show up. Nobody is above the law. And Yemi Da Vinci tweeted still, beyond Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB, Nigeria needs a new constitution where there will be laid down procedures if a region wants to go. And if we are talking about marginalization, how many outsiders own land or political office in Igbo land? That's marginalization. Yemi Da Vinci tweeted that. And we got another tweet from Yemi Da Vinci. I am a supporter of the right to self-determination, but those seeking it must be very careful so as not to endanger lives. And we got another tweet from Yemi Da Vinci. It's when Sisafly landed private part that many realize violence is not always the answer. Agitators should try other methods. This tweet came from Ayuade Shurunke, and it says, if we keep saying Nigeria's unity is not negotiable, what then will be the incentive to restructure, making those at well, I'm not too sure of that. That was an abbreviation which I can't really put my finger on. Okay, give in to correct all imbalances. All right, thank you. Please, when you abbreviate, remember that it may be very difficult to take your abbreviations because there are issues, there are different meanings to different abbreviations. Thank you. So please, when tweeting, try as much as possible not to abbreviate. Thank you so much. All right, those are the tweets we got here.
All right, you want to quickly react to the questions there?
Well, thank you very much. Many questions and many comments. But let me start by the one that said I did not react to the killing by Fulani herdsmen all across the nation. And just to say that the issue we are treating now is not about Fulani herdsmen or whatever. However, killing by anybody in any part of the country is something I find reprehensible, and it's something that should not be condoned. I believe that law enforcement agencies should monitor the activities of the so-called Fulani herdsmen and do the needful where they have gone beyond the law. That's my take on that. Having said that, people also talked about how to deal with the agitations from various organizations. And I want to believe that, you see, when you live in a nation such as complex as Nigeria, there is always a tendency for agitation because everybody, as I've said, will feel marginalized one way or the other. If you, even within the family, um, people will still talk about marginalization. But I think the best way to go about it is for us to be able to appreciate and accommodate one another, learn to live by our differences, and then believe that we cannot have everything that we want within a family, not to talk of within a nation. There will always be agitations, and I also believe that government must also be proactive at the same time to deal with the basic uh, causes of marginalization, basic the foundations of those marginalization. And I believe that when government, when there is good governance, I think good governance and leadership is the key to some of these things. The problem that Nigeria has is that in the past we have not had it good with the kind of governance that we have. There has been so much corruption, so much uh, sleaze in the public finances and things like that. And it has deprived us of many of the dividends of democracy that our people are yearning for. And where you have this kind of scenario, you cannot, I mean, begin to talk, I mean, you cannot talk, say anything, no time to say that we are marginalized men, because the dividends of democracy are not getting to where it will be. So, good governance and purposeful leadership will take us out of all these kind of agitations and sentiments that we have, because good governance will ensure participation of everybody, will ensure development, and will ensure progress for the nation. But when we have a scenario where you have corruption every left, right, and center, people will continue to shout about marginalization because they don't know. Probably they know corruption is bad, but they don't know that that marginalization stems from what we call corruption. Because where you have corruption, people will always cry of marginalization.
All right, we'll just wrap it up with this from Kuto. My message this morning is that only God will arrest those people that are commenting trash about Biafra and IPOB. God will continue to fight for Biafrans. All right, this one says those criticizing government for IPOB proscription as terrorists are not sincere. And they are unpatriotic Nigerians. No responsible government will fold his arms watching set of people wanting to destabilize the country. Worst of all is the number 3 man of the present government openly opposed to the actions, meaning the Senate president is backing treasonable felony offender to break Nigeria or what? In a civilized country with true distinguished honorables, they may have impeached him and they sent in that one. Good morning. Don't mind Ferry in supporting this issue because they are not in support of the government in power. That war from Adeon sent in that. Why do we treat effect and not the cause? Why do we sleep and put our heads towards the same direction? Are we saying IPOP has no genuine grievances? Why don't we listen to them and address their grievances? Falaki Yemi sent in that one. You want to quickly react to that? Do you have tweets, Aghemerio? Okay. This tweet just trickled in. Professor Gula AAA. Kudos to the guest in the studio. You want to quickly react to that question raised by, I think, for like hear me now. Say, are we saying IPOB has no genuine grievances?
Well, we have said it. Grievances and the way you go about talking about your grievances, they are two different things. Nobody has said that government should not listen to IPOB. They have some issues that government should look into. It's only that we are saying that the method of going about it is where the problem is. However, I wish to state that, and this is my last remarks, the action by the military in the southeast should be done within the rules of engagement for such operation. They should not in any way molest innocent civilians, and they should respect the rights, the fundamental rights of the average southeastern person. Because when you have a military operation like that, the tendency is that it could lead to some other issues of human rights and things like that. So to that extent, I want to implore government to deal with that situation very cautiously, especially as it relates to the military operation in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lekan Oketokun, for doing justice to the topic and honoring our invitation this morning. We appreciate you so much. We want to appreciate every one of you also, those who listened quietly, and those who contributed either via the calls or via the short code or via social media platforms. We appreciate you. Join us again tomorrow for another fresh edition of the Daybreak Show, starting from 7 a.m. with newspaper headlines. I am Tobi Joseph. Have a wonderful day.
And I